This is Church Growth 302, and I'm your instructor, Steve Googe. Church revitalization is an important topic for those interested in church growth. Now, what will you learn in this session? You'll learn some startling statistics about the need for revitalization. You will learn a good definition that can be used to define church revitalization. We will examine some steps to follow when interested in church revitalization, and then 4 keys to church revitalization. This presentation is based on a 4-part series done by Tom Rainer and articles by John Ewart and Chuck Lawless. It may surprise you that there are approximately 400,000 churches in the United States. They range in size from very small to mega-sized churches. They include many denominations, non-denominations, independents, and a diversity of networks. It might be interesting for you to know that there are at least 64 separate Baptist denominations in America. According to the Malfers Group, 80 to 85% of all churches are either plateaued or losing ground. In 1988, Win Arn, a church growth pioneer, wrote this, and I quote, "In America, 4 out of 5 churches are either plateaued or declining. Many churches begin a plateau or slow decline about their 15th to 18th year." Close quotes. Unfortunately, Dr. Arn's assessment of the state of the church was accurate. Tom Rainer wrote, and I quote, 8 out of 10 of the approximately 400,000 churches in the United States are declining or have plateaued. There is a 90-to-1 baptismal ratio. That means a church with a membership of 90 people will only see 1 person saved and baptized in 1 year. And incidentally, 90 to 100 is about the average size of the church in the United States. A church of 180 might see 2 people baptized. That tells us that the Great Commission has become the Great Omission. Approximately 4,000 churches close their doors in the United States every year. Approximately 12.5% of the people attend church on a Sunday. That's according to a Glenn Mary research study from a few years ago. From these statistics, we can see that the majority of churches in America are in a free fall. The need for revitalization is indeed great. There is hope, however. Even with those sobering statistics we just examined, there is hope. With proper care, plateaued and declining churches can become healthy once again. I believe that struggling churches need attention to help reverse the downward spiral. Many times, pastors need to enlist outside help to guide the church forward. A consultant often can help the church identify its core values, develop a mission and vision statement. A strategic plan can then be developed with a timeline for execution. Before we examine a definition of church revitalization, let's examine what it is not. Church revitalization is not a series of programs or an exaggeration of our statistics. Would you believe that some churches have even resorted to counting some people multiple times on a Sunday morning to achieve what appears on paper to be church growth? Church revitalization is not just adjusting an organization so that it appears that something new is happening in the hope that new people will be drawn or attracted. Now, there's no problem in developing attractional programs, but we need to avoid the tendency of overpromising and underdelivering when new people attend. Church revitalization is about discipleship. It is about turning people into fervent followers of Jesus Christ. Although this is sometimes a slow process, it's the best way to turn around a church. The Mississippi Annual Conference gives this excellent definition. Church revitalization means that the local church was, at one time, vital and must once again learn to renew, revitalize, and reestablish the health and vitality of their church ministry. Let me go over that definition again. Church revitalization means that the local church was, at one time, vital and must once again learn to renew, revitalize, and reestablish the health and vitality of their church ministry. A picture of the front cover of John Ewart's book entitled A New Normal, Creating Understood Value for a Revitalized Church is on this slide on the left-hand side. In it he writes, and I quote, "We know the church is more than a series of programs and quantitative measurements, but we still think this way and talk this way sometimes. In that case, church revitalization is just adjusting an organization. We must, however, embrace the idea that church revitalization is first the revitalization of individual church members. It is an individual discipleship process occurring in a corporate context. Much church revitalization focuses on quantitative measures, and they are very important, but they are also usually just symptoms of qualitative issues unless some major internal factor is at play. If, for example, a factory that employed several people in a town shuts down, the church should expect quantitative decline. Most church revitalization issues, however, are not quantitative. They are qualitative. Not baptizing people is a symptom. It's not the disease. Why are you not baptizing people? Why don't your members share their faith? The base spiritual issue must be revealed and addressed." Close quotes. Here are a few steps Rayner suggests that will help a church move toward revitalization. Realizing that you're not alone. The omnipresent God is with you. There are other churches and denominational leaders also who are with you. If you need a coach or a guide to help you move forward, then seek one out. Second, rely on God to supply the power to build His church. But Jesus looked at them and He said, "With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." That's Matthew chapter 19, verse 26. You must combine the strength of daily prayer and Bible study. That's number 3. Prayer is direct conversation and communication with God, whether it's vocal, silent, planned or spontaneous, individual or corporate. Obstacles and critics are common, but they're not insurmountable. To complain is to express one's pain, grief, or discontent. Job complained to God about his suffering in Job chapter 7, verse 11, even to the point of loathing his own life, Job 10:1. The Israelites murmured. They complained in the wilderness. They complained to Yahweh about their misfortunes. This is found in Numbers 11:1. The psalmist brings his complaint before Yahweh in the temple and is confident that Yahweh will hear him and save him from his trouble. Psalm 55:16 and following. Number 5, the size of your church is not the issue. The leadership of the pastor is a key factor. The roles of leadership are simple but very important. Here are the roles of leadership. Inspire trust. Second, clarify vision and strategy. Third, good execution. And fourth, enlisting and engaging talent. In other words, unlocking the potential of others. And then number 7, revitalization is not impossible. When God supplies the power, we pray and are engaged in Bible study, we can overcome any critic or obstacle, regardless of the size of our church. The pastor is the key leader in revitalization. There is hope. You're not alone. Revitalization is possible. Now, here are 4 keys to revitalization, again suggested by Tom Rainer. Number 1, expectations. What is a church member supposed to do, and how do they know it? Most churches don't communicate expectations. Every church, and I underline that, every church should have a new members class. Membership classes should communicate information, expectations, and attitudes that build up the church. Also, the church's philosophy of ministry can be shared in a class like this. A new members class gives an opportunity to talk about the vision and the mission of the church. And then discipleship. How does a church member become a more mature believer? And then number 3, have an outward focus. Most churches focus inwardly. Churches have a tendency over time to move more inward focused, and they therefore experience entropy. We need church leaders and members who will love their community that the church serves. No church has a turnaround until it first seeks to make a difference in the community. And then last is leadership and relational skills. Every year, about 50,000 churches look for a pastor. Pastoral burnout is high. Many pastors are leaving the ministry. Frequent change of leaders produces an unhealthy experience in the church. We need church leaders and members who will both dream and persevere. We need church leaders who love the churches they serve. Where can you start? Well, prayer is the starting point. Pray for people to be reached. If you want your church to be revitalized, pray that many people will come to Christ. We need church leaders and members who will become prayer warriors. Church revitalization begins and continues with God and His strength. Use hospitality evangelism. This is another good strategy. Invite people for a meal and reach them through hospitality. As mentioned above, start a new members class. This kind of class is indispensable for revitalization. It is here that the expectation of the church for new members can be openly discussed. The philosophy of the church can be shared. Also, attitudes that help the church grow can be disclosed. I always use a new members class to share the gospel. And in several experiences, several cases, people have trusted the Lord right there in the new members class. Well, this ends this presentation, although it has been brief, this presentation on church revitalization. I hope you'll be able to take some of the suggestions that were presented here and use them in your church in a practical way to help your church move forward in a revitalized, renewed, refreshed, and revived way.